Growing up, my mother did the best she could. My mother and father divorced when I was 1, so my brother, 5 years older than me, pretty much raised me. He pretty much ruled the house with an iron fist. There was a point that he molested me and used fear to bound me up and pretty much control me. And I hated him so much for that. If I made the slightest mistakes, I was either abused or verbally abused. But my house was pretty much, the only way I can explain is a free will house. My brother, he dropped out of high school when he was in 9th grade, so he kind of lived the life of the streets, so I pretty much was able to do what I want. I wanted to be accepted by everyone I could. But also, I had such a fear of rejection that I isolated myself. Because I never really got that love from my father. My brother never really showed me love except with a fist. So going into high school, I started finding acceptance in all the wrong places. Whether it be drugs, alcohol, women, that's mainly my focus was on. That's where I searched for everything. Just to pretty much block out the pain of the things my brother did to me, the pain of not having a father there. I shadowed my brother, so I was always in a state of rebelliousness. I graduated high school, I ended up going into college, and that's really where a lot of things started turning. As soon as I graduated high school, I moved out of the house. I got a good job, I was going to college, and I got a house, but that desire to be loved it just overwhelmed me, and I found it all in the wrong places. I found out the more drugs I had, the more things I had, the more people wanted to be around me. March 14th of 2009 was the day my brother was murdered. I would say that was probably the day that I gave up. I was living in Fort Myers at the time, and a friend of mine called me, told me my brother had been shot. So I dropped everything I was doing and I ran back to home. By the time I got to the hospital, my mother was in tears and told me my brother was gone. That was the moment I gave up. Overwhelming anger and resentment and just hatred filled my heart. And from then on, I went into a spiral. I took every drug I could get. I drank as much alcohol as I could get, and I rebelled against everyone that tried to help me. I dropped out of college. I lost my car, I lost my job, and I lost my house, all within a year. And I found myself homeless, just hurt and alone. And with a strong addiction to opiates, I took whatever I could to make the pain go away, everything go away. And doing everything I could to tear my family apart, to live a life of destruction, pretty much. That was my life. My hatred really, as it grew, it really grew towards God. I couldn't understand why He would allow something like this to happen. Why would He allow this, not necessarily happen to my family, but to my brother? But a part of me wasn't hurt. Reason being is I had a lot of hatred and anger towards my brother. So much anger fueled in me that it was almost, I was okay with it, that he was gone. Closed off from my family, closed off from anyone that loved me. The years before, I was in and out of jail. I was in and out of rehab facilities trying to get help, and I had a lot of prison time over my head. I ended up finding myself living in the woods with just a mesh bag full of clothes, hating life, hating everyone around me, and most of all, hating myself. I wanted to end it all. I made a plan for myself to take every drug I had on me, and I didn't want to wake up again. I took everything I had, and I was still standing. And it actually terrified me that I could do something like that and still be standing. And I look back at it today, and I believe it was God. I dropped to my knees and I cried out to God, and I asked Him to help me. I called my mother and I told her that something had to change, that I needed to do something different. So what she did, she came, picked me up, and she brought me to church. Through my years, there's been times where I've gone to church and I prayed the prayer of, giving my life to Christ, and it didn't really mean much. But in this moment, I was at such desperation that I needed something different. I remember sitting in the pews, and I wasn't standing singing the praises. I was just sitting there, just dwelling on where my life was. And I remember looking in front of me, and there was a card, and I picked it up and I started reading it, and it was telling you, if you ever want to give your life to Christ, read the prayer. I just was crying my eyes out, and I just started begging God that whatever you can do, whatever it takes, I'll do it. I just need something different. I need to get out of this pit. The moment we left that church, the detox program called my mother, and I told her that they could get me in. I was just overwhelmed with a sense of peace. I knew that something was different. I knew I was going to be okay. And I remember going into the office, and everyone in the office, they knew me by name. I've been there so many times, and the lady looked at me and she said, "Well, Randy, what are we going to do different?" And I looked there and I started crying. I was so focused on my whole life that I could do it. And in that moment, I finally told myself I couldn't do it, that I needed something different. She told me a name of a program called Dunklin Memorial Regeneration Camp. And it was a Christian-based program. You ate, you breathed, and you slept with Christ. Everything you did, everything you read, every moment you were there was nothing but God. The program was 10 and a half months. And I spent 10 and a half months working on my issues. And there's a part of me that went into that program just to be able to stop using drugs. That's all I want to do, is just stop using drugs and live a normal life. And I came to a point that I wasn't using drugs no more. I wasn't doing none of that stuff no more, but my attitudes and the actions I had and my desires were all still there. I went through a part called Inner Healing in this program, and you walk through certain prayers, and you go back to certain points in your childhood and say it to every man. I felt just a bondage of stuff that I wanted to puke out. I wanted to get out of me, but I was so bound up with fear that I was afraid to let it go. Because once I let it out there, it was out there. There was no getting it back. There was a moment I confronted a lot of my anger, a lot of resentment, a lot of anger I had towards my brother. The anger I had towards my brother fueled a point that I actually fantasized about his death. And I came to a point that I imagined life without him. And I thought to myself that I would go to the grave with that. I would never let anyone know that. Because I wished to God that he would die. And the moment he died, I felt that he granted my wish. That God granted my wish of making my brother disappear. I was able to confess that and share that with my brothers. I was able to ask God for forgiveness for the hatred and the anger I had towards him. And being able to stand on the truth opened my eyes to the love that Christ had for me. I ended up graduating that program May 18th of 2014. And that moment I was able to be baptized. I've been baptized before, and I said the Lord's Prayer, but this was actually a moment I really believed it in my heart this time. There was a part that changed in my heart, that the moment I was submerged in that water and I rose again, there was a new man that walked out that day. July of 2015, I ended up moving back here, but there was a part that God wanted me in a recovery ministry. God told me, he said, "What are you doing? Why are you sitting on the back burner?" He said, I want you in the fire. I want you to continue on the work I have for you. Now I'm sharing my testimony at the Celebrate Recoveries, and I'm able to lead step studies, and I lead small groups, and I'm able to go there and see the miraculous change God works in men. You know, I went from a life of selfish, self-destruction to a selfless life, to allowing God to use me in every which way He could. My name is Randy Miller, and my backstory would still be my story if it wasn't for Jesus Christ and the things He's done in my life.